have stories. Every single one of us. From the highest of the high to the lowest of the low, we all have stories. Exploring the world for the greatest stories of all time.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show.
The Aron O'Dowd Show. Our soul is the screen upon which we project our dreams. What's your story?
Hello, good welcome, good evening, good morning to all. It's that time of the week again where the Aron O'Dowd Show, your host Aron O'Dowd is hosting this amazing show. We all have mothers in our lives, grandmothers, mothers, etc. And their well-being is so important for us because if we don't have a healthy mom, how can we have a healthy family or healthy life? Because they help us born us in the world, make us grow up, and show us what we're going to do. And our amazing guest today, as always, she is all about the self-care mamas, and we're going to find out more about her. Hello and welcome to the show, Ashley Balza. How are you doing?
I'm good, Aron. How are you?
Good. Tell us more about who you are and what you are.
Absolutely. So I'm Ashley Balza, and I am known as the Self-Care Mama. I am a mom of 7, grandmother of 2, and my husband and I run a construction company here in Wisconsin. And I also have a Self-Care Mama Mentorship program for busy and burned out moms.
So are you a burnout mom?
I was, yes. 6 years ago, I was extremely sick after I gave birth to our 6th baby. And during that time of my 10-day hospital stay, it really occurred to me that I was living in exhaustion, burnout, bitterness, and resentment that really started to take root. And it needed to change, but I wasn't quite sure how at that time it was going to change.
Wait, so 6 kids?
Yes, 6 of my biological children, and we have 1 adopted son. He is married and has 2 sons of his own. He's also in the United States Marine Corps.
That is a big family. How do you manage all these kids?
It really does take a team. It takes dedicated communication between my husband and myself. It also takes friends that are willing to step up to the plate and pour into our children when we're not around. And I would always tell people it's not like we have babysitters lining up and down the block to watch our children. So it's really finding that network of friends that is, again, willing to take on the crew, if you will. But at some point, we used to have to hire 2 babysitters to watch our kids. And now we have a 14-year-old that has stepped into babysitter role for mom and dad to get out of the house for dinner.
It sounds like chapter by the dozen in real life, you know?
Oh yes, most definitely.
Had you planned to have these amount of kids, or did it just naturally happen?
We were given some great advice before we started having kids by my father-in-law. And he had said, if you wait until you can afford kids, you're never going to have them. So we very much took that advice to probably the next level, if you will, and decided we were just going to let God be in control of it. So we ended up getting married in 2008, and we had our first son in 2010. And it was just after the other, if you will. We've got one that's 2012, one that's 2013, 2015, 17, and 2018. So they were literally one right after the other.
Oh man, a production line is that, you know.
Yes,
How,
and people will ask, "Is there any more coming?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. We are done because the last one almost killed me. I'm complete. I'm finished. No more kids."
how do you manage everything?
Um, in reality, it's about the boundaries that I have set regarding my self-care. Because I had the illness after baby number 6, I was granted more time on this earth. So it was about, how do I put boundaries in place, get rid of toxic relationships? How do I begin to say no when everybody wants me to say yes to things, and really setting the boundaries. But then also remembering that I cannot pour from an empty cup. So I needed to begin the process of taking care of me. I started surrounding myself with women that poured into me and really begin to relearn, if you will, my value. Uh, a lot of times I would have my value attached to another human being. And in reality, my value comes from my creator. So it's something that I had to remember. And communication is also very critical and key. If I'm in that mode of exhaustion and burnout, I have to make my needs verbally known. I can't expect my husband to read my mind and to know what I need.
Yeah. I mean, you say you weren't here. Did you have a past life near-death experience, or you're just at that space where you nearly passed away in delivering your 6th child?
So after baby number 6, everything was great. We had a home birth, and then I got extremely sick and ended up having to um, go into the hospital after a week of dealing with the illness. And they had said, you just have a virus, you have to fight through it. So I went back home, or came back home, and then another week went by, and then I couldn't breathe. So I went back into the hospital and I was admitted into the ICU, and they discovered that I had a septic strep A infection that was building fluid up in my body, and I ended up having oxygen levels in the 60s when I was originally admitted. So I was on 100% oxygen, and I had chest tubes, the whole gamut of things. And yeah, that's really where that journey began. They were surprised that I was pretty much still living, if you will, because of how much fluid had built up in my body and how long I had gone with this infection. So yeah, it was very scary.
I'd say it was, and it probably helped your journey now to be the self-care mama, you know.
Yes, absolutely it did.
How did you overcome this illness to be the healthy mama that you are?
So after I got out of the hospital, I battled. I ended up having, I would say, undiagnosed PTSD. It was very traumatic for me to be hospitalized and then away from my kids, and my marriage was on the rocks. It was not in a very good place. And I had a friend that I talked to. He was a pastor at the time, and he had said, Ashley, he asked me really point blank, why are you still married? And that was a question that I couldn't really answer other than, well, we love each other. And he's like, well, that's not a good enough reason. So he said, you're attaching your value to your husband. So you have to remember, where does your value come from? As I said before. And he said, your value is found in God. And then we had a conversation, and around that same time, I had been offered an opportunity to become a skincare consultant with a company here in Wisconsin. And when I started having women pour into me and uplift me and support me in ways that I hadn't had in a very long time, it was a game changer. My energy, my attitude, things started to shift. And that's where the journey began. I began my self-care journey with my skincare. Little by little, started taking better care of myself, where it wasn't just about the kids. My husband and I began to date again, where we set intentional time to spend with one another instead of just constantly being surrounded by the kids. So, yeah.
Was that question, asking your value with your husband, was that a catalyst question to realize, what am I doing? Where do I need to go? And where's my relationship going with the person I love?
Yeah, it was definitely that question of, where are we going? Is our marriage going to survive this? Because again, after that near-death experience, one person has a shift of, this can't keep going this way, something needs to change. But if the other person doesn't have that same experience, or experiences the situation differently and doesn't have that mindset shift, you're going in two opposite directions. One has the desire of, we need to build memories because life is precious, life is too short. And the other's like, well, I'm providing for my family and I have to work all the time and do this. So you're very unbalanced. So it's, how do you come together in the middle to, I don't want to say compromise, but how do you come to an understanding? And again, it comes down to those boundaries. Where do we need to begin saying no so we can say yes over here? Is there certain family gatherings or certain requests put upon us that we have to say no to versus saying yes to, so we can be a unit, either together, the two of us, or with our kids, to build those memories and take a trip, versus, okay, let's work all the time and then stay in that cycle.
It must have been hard to find the balance as a working mom, a mom looking after 6 kids. What's the secret?
So I've been home with the kids, if you will, when we were foster parents before we started having our own children, since 2009. So finding that balance really required me to begin asking for help, to learn how to delegate, so it didn't all fall on my shoulders. And as our kids probably reached right around age 5, maybe 6, it was teaching them household chores. How do you do the dishes? How do you either scrub the dishes or unload the dishwasher and reload, and just certain things like that. And even, okay, help me with laundry. So really teaching them the life skills. So now that they're older, it's one of those things of, okay, you're on dish duty today, you're on dish duty today, and it gets split between all of the kids. So that frees up time for my husband and I. If we want to go to dinner, okay, we give the kids a list of, okay, the dishes need to be done and laundry needs to be switched, so this is your chore while we're gone, and they get those things done. So it's that delegation that we created when they were little that now carries on as they get older.
What did this all teach you as a human being?
Again, community is very important. support is very important. The communication is important. But if you're not taking care of you, your body somewhere along the way will force you to take care of you. So you can continue on burning the candle at both ends for as long as your body will allow you to, but there will come a point where you will hit a brick wall, and it will be an illness, it'll be a near-death experience, it'll be a diagnosis, however it comes, it will force you to slow down, because you can't keep going in that constant position of adrenaline and stress and chronic stress and fatigue and exhaustion without there being some type of effect. So that's the biggest thing. Taking care of you now so you're not paying for it later.
And it's a word we use a lot, burnout, but probably someone who's experienced it, describe to us what it's like, because it's such a vivid and vague, but yet we all burn and experience at the same time.
So burnout has a lot of similar symptoms as depression, but there's not a diagnosis for burnout. So burnout can be you're isolating yourself, you're not wanting to get out of bed, or if you do get out of bed, you just have this heaviness. You're very exhausted. It feels like you didn't get any sleep. You don't necessarily enjoy those same activities that you enjoyed before. Again, they're very similar to depression, but depression, you typically stay there. Burnout, you can get out of. And I'm not saying you can't get out of depression either, but the burnout typically has a shorter window of time where you can get out of it a lot faster. But when you're in that burnout, you also can have, in my experience, you can have this resentment or this bitterness that is stewing within, if you will, because you are, especially as a mom, if you are in a two-parent relationship or you have a spouse that seems to be working all the time and you're at home with the kids, you can flip like that. All of a sudden, you can be happy one minute, and then you have this explosive reaction to something. You might say the words, I feel like I'm doing everything on my own. I feel like I don't have any help in the house. Statements like that, you're walking a very fine line. You're probably in that burnout. And it's not just a physical burnout, it's an emotional burnout. You're just fried. You're overwhelmed. You can't take on one more responsibility. But yet you find yourself people pleasing and you do it anyway because you haven't set those clear boundaries with people. That's what burnout can look like, especially for a mom. Happy one minute, she's snapping the next. So it's very delicate when you're in that burnout phase.
And if I'm a mother and I'm in burnout, what would be your 3 secret tips to become happy again?
Start taking care of you. Whatever that looks like. Take small baby steps. And think of what you already do that takes care of you. It really comes down to simplifying your view on self-care. Because society will give us those quick fixes of, oh yeah, just spend time at the spa, go get your hair done, go get your nails done. But it's what are you doing when you're already at home to take care of you? Maybe all you can do is just sit in the bathroom and brush your hair. You get the scalp stimulation, and it fills you with joy of it feels good, and I'm just going to sit here and deep breathe. So taking care of you is the biggest thing. Then the next thing I would say is find somebody that you can talk to, whether it be a therapist or maybe it's a good friend, or really begin to build community with other moms that have gone into that season or have been in that season before. So find support. That is the biggest thing. And the last thing I would say is ask for help. Moms struggle to ask for help because we feel like we can do it all on our own. And if we ask for help, it must mean we're not a good mom. We're a weak mom. And that could be further from the truth. When you can ask for help and you can humble yourself to say, I'm struggling, I really need some help, that shows your vulnerability, but it also can give other moms that opportunity to know that it's okay to not be okay. And that's where your community begins to build. That's where you find your support system. So asking for help is huge.
And looking back now as a mother, do you feel that was the biggest challenge in the struggle of asking for help?
Yes, because I was the mom that if I had to ask for help, something dire must really be going on, or there's something not right, because I wasn't a mom that would ask for help. I built a support system where I could vent to other moms about things that were going on, but it wasn't necessarily always the healthiest of support system. And it wasn't even the I need to ask for help in this moment. It was just I need somebody to talk to. So when I got sick, I had to ask for help because I was stuck in a hospital bed. So that forced me to call on that support system of people that we had built to have people come in to make meals for my husband because he was here with all the kids. I wasn't. So that meant that some moms would come in, or friends that we had, and they would help clean the house, or they would make the meals. They would come and they would spend time with our kids, or they would take our kids to give my husband a break. We had people that grocery shopped for us because my husband once said, put me in charge of $1 million projects, but ask me to grocery shop and I've got anxiety all day long. Like, don't do it. So it was a very humbling experience that we had to begin to ask for help. And it was a game changer. It really was.
You know, when I hear self-care mama, I think it's all about makeup and hair and dresses and going to the spa. Is that correct or not?
No. So one of the things that I teach moms is really first of all, meeting them where they're at. So where is your thought process right now on self-care? And then we build upon that and we dig into what is our mindset around self-care. What activities can we do in small chunks that can be joyful and soul fulfilling for us? Is it reading a good book, sitting in the sunshine? That to me is self-care. Is it maybe taking a bubble bath? That's one of those quick fixes because obviously you can't spend all day in the tub. But it's that long-term self-care habit building activity. So for me, if I do my Bible study in the morning, I'm going to enjoy a hot cup of coffee with it. That fills my soul. So what are the things that you do already, or maybe you can incorporate to your day on top of a habit that you already have, and you almost habit stack with it? We talk about boundaries. Where are our boundaries? We talk about what triggers us to go into that overwhelm, into that explosive state. Why do we get there? How do we get out of it? So, Self-Care Mama is really about the big picture. Those quick fixes are great in the moment, but they're not long lasting. So it's really about the long lasting change that we can get for a mom and where we can go in that moment.
I know at the beginning of our conversation talked about construction. Are you a lady with power tools or hammers and chisels, or is that well away from you?
My husband has done a very good job of taking me out of my comfort zone when I go on job sites with him and having me use some power tools, not saws if I don't have to, but yeah, that's more his department. But we've currently been remodeling our house, and it's really a family affair, if you will. And some of my older boys will help build decks and go on job sites with him. My 13-year-old just did some trim work for us here in the house and had to cut 45-degree angles and all sorts of stuff. So it's really that family affair for us with construction. And honestly, lately I've been tying the self-care piece to even the construction industry, because you have to tear apart and you have to take down, and then you get to rebuild. So what do you want that rebuild to look like? What do you want that remodel to look like? Do you have a vision of what it looks like? So it's kind of one of those things that I've been putting hand in hand, that they do go together. And also learning, when you're in the middle of a remodel, where does your mental state go? Because remodeling is stressful. And how can you take care of yourself when you're in the middle of a remodel?
You can't. It's stressful. It's like trading. It'll make or break you and test you at the same time, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
What does the word family mean for you, Ashley?
Family for me is, it's not just the love that you have, but family also doesn't need to be blood. I have built a lot of family around me with a lot of non-blood related people. It's about the support that you give to one another. And to me, it's also about making memories. When you're in the middle of the crap, let's just call it what it is, when you're in the middle of it, do you have certain people that you trust that you can be vulnerable with? If you can call them up, you can air out your dirty laundry, and they're still there at the end of the day to support you, to uplift you, to walk through it with you, that's family. If you call them and they don't support you, they guilt you, they shame you, or maybe you never really speak to them again, they don't check in with you and ask you how you're doing, they can still be family, but are they the type of family that you want in your life to be pouring into you? So it's really about, your family is who you make them in reality. I have a lot of toxic family members that I keep a very far distance from. That doesn't mean I don't love them, but I'm careful of who I surround myself with, especially with having kids. If they're not somebody that's positive and uplifting, I get very sporadic of how much I'm going to spend time with them. So that's really my definition of family. It's who you make it, who you want it to be, and it doesn't have to be blood.
I love it. Ashley, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook. Ashley, the Self-Care Mama, is where my hangout spot is. Yeah, that's where you can find me the most.
Fantastic. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a blast, and you seem to rock the word family and construction and everything, and look forward to seeing what's happening in your world in the future.
Yes, thank you, Aaron.
There you go, everybody. Another fantastic episode, and it just shows you how big families equals big mamas, and you need to have the self-care aspect to it to achieve success in whatever, from one kid to 25 kids in one family. So remember, if you like, subscribe and comment, because that helps this show get out to the world to share all these amazing guests, including today's. And stay tuned for next week's episode at Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at 4 p.m. UK time. And remember, check your clocks, because the time difference can be a kick up the ass, even though you think you've scheduled the right time to be here all at the same time. So rock on, and remember, you're a superstar.
Thank you for listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show, where the world's best stories are told. If you like, please post a review or subscribe to the show. To find out more, contact us at aronodowd.com. That's ARONODOWD.com. We're always ready to share another magnificent tale from the world's best storytellers. So stay tuned.